You're up in your fantasy draft. The clock is ticking, but first you need to ask yourself one simple question. What can I get here that I cannot get later? Why take a mid RB and a bad offense in round 3 when I can get a very similar player in round 8? Ladies and mostly gentlemen, that is exactly what we were trying to accomplish in today's video. I have 6 player archetypes of pure value that you can get later in drafts, and accordingly, I cannot stop drafting them. Let's get after it. Archetype number 1, a franchise quarterback in a talented offense with at least a decent rushing floor. Right now, Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence are going in rounds 5 and 6 of most drafts, but if you wait until round 9, that's where Geno Smith comes into the equation. Look, I'd obviously bet on Herbert and Lawrence to outperform Geno in the long term, but for just 2023, Geno has the potential to be the far superior option, especially at cost. Last year, Geno's 17.9 fantasy points per game were good for the 9th highest mark at the position. Meanwhile, Lawrence and Herbert finished as just the QB 11 and QB 15 respectively. All 3 signal callers have received an offseason boost at wide receiver, and we are once again expecting each of these offenses to be among the league's most lethal units. Arguably, the only reason Geno is this cheap in the first place is due to pre-draft concerns about the team adding another quarterback high up in the first round. Well, fast forward to present day, and Geno inked a 3-year, $75 million extension and is fully entrusted as the Seahawks QB1. Geno is the focal point of an absolutely loaded Seahawks offense and is going a full 50 to 60 picks later than Lawrence and Herbert. If you are fading the top 8 options at the position, Geno stands out as the late round quarterback thanks to his borderline Konami code skill set. Archetype number 2. A lead running back in a high-powered offense expected to work as the lead early down option. We have our expensive pick Travis Etienne regularly going off the board in round 4, with the cheaper arbitrage selection being Kenneth Walker in round 5. Both Etienne and Walker truly did some great things on the ground as rookies, but they also demonstrated some clear holes in their game when it came to pass down ability and performance on the goal line. Overall, Etienne and Walker graded out as just the 35th and 43rd best running backs in PFF's receiving grade last year, and they were the league's single 2 least efficient rushers in terms of converting carries inside the 5-yard line into touchdowns. Targets and goal line carries are quite literally the 2 most fantasy-friendly opportunities that any RB can ask for, and accordingly, it's not surprising that both the Seahawks and the Jaguars use day 2 draft capital to take running backs capable of filling those roles. The addition of UCLA running back Zach Charbonnet has accordingly tanked Walker's ADP, which was at RB6 levels before the draft, but the addition of Tank Bigsby in Jacksonville has barely moved the needle for Travis Etienne. The opportunity cost of taking Etienne in round 4 means missing out on upside wide receiver 2s and legit top 5 quarterbacks. I vastly prefer Kenneth Walker in round 5 as a fellow good lead early down back in a great offense. Archetype number 3, and honestly guys, this is one of my favorite ones. I'm talking about a potential workhorse RB, but serious efficiency concerns inside of a pretty bad offense. Now, the expensive pick here is going to be Najee Harris going usually at the round 3, round 4 turn, but if you want to wait until those middle rounds, I believe that Cam Akers, Rachaad White, and James Conner offer far more value at cost. All of these running backs were terrible last season, almost any way you cut it. But here's the thing, people. You don't need to have good efficiency in order to be a great fantasy running back when you have that sweet, sweet volume. Last season, Najee Harris wound up working as the RB19 in PPR points per game, while James Conner posted an RB9 finish across the season. Even though Cam Akers had a bit of a rough stretch to start the year, he still worked as the overall RB4 during the final 6 weeks. Hell, even Rachaad White in 1 game without Leonard Fournette managed to put forward an RB9 overall finish. None of these backfields added meaningful free agent competition throughout the offseason, and none of them added a running back on day 1 or day 2 of the draft. I understand we still have guys like Zeke, Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt. The list goes on of running backs that are set to destroy one depth chart or another, but I really don't believe there's any extra risk in these specific backfields relative to the rest of the league. It comes down to this. Even if you think Najee Harris will be the top performing running back out of this group, will he do it by a large enough margin to warrant the 30 to 50 pick premium that it costs to acquire his services in the first place? I'm out on Najee as things stand because of the reality that you can get fellow inefficient workhorse talents far later in fantasy drafts of all shapes and sizes. Archetype number 4. Pass-catching RBs with theoretical 3-down ability, with our expensive version being DeAndre Swift and the not-so-expensive version being Antonio Gibson. Credit to Swift for racking up 3 consecutive top 15 finishes in PPR points per game, but as much as we know that Philly is a better real-life offense than Detroit, when we're looking at pure fantasy-friendly opportunity for running backs, we actually have to give the edge to the Lions. Dual threat QBs like Jalen Hurts are great for their real life teams and their managers, but we've consistently seen over the years that they aren't so good for their team's running backs because of their tendency to scramble instead of checking down and factor into the equation near the goal line. This explains why teams like the Eagles, the Seahawks, the Ravens, and the Bills boast top 12 scoring offenses over the past 3 seasons, but actually rank among the league's bottom 12 offenses in terms of expected PPR points per game in their backfields. Meanwhile, Washington has been as mid as they come on offense over the past 3 years, yet ranks second in expected PPR points per game because of those sweet targets. Consider this, J.D. McKissic, who is now a free agent, averaged more targets per game than anyone other than Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, and Alvin Kamara over the past 3 seasons, and now that role belongs to Antonio Gibson. Look, there is some change in Washington. It's not a certainty that Gibson gets the same sort of pass-down friendly role with Jacoby Brissett and Sam Howell under center, and we also have to consider Eric Bieniemy now calling plays. But still, guys, at least in recent history, we have seen Washington be far more fantasy-friendly for their RBs than what's gone on in Philly, who figures to once again utilize a committee backfield of sorts. Gibson is one of my most drafted running backs of the offseason thanks to his potential to have standalone flex value in full PPR formats and potential, wait for it, league-winning upside should anything happen to lead early down back Brian Robinson. Archetype number 5, a talented, clear-cut number 1 wide receiver who unfortunately exists in a run-first offense with severe question marks under center. The expensive version of this is going to be DJ Moore at the end of round 4, but guys, you can wait until the early parts of round 6 and get Colts wide receiver Michael Pittman at a fraction of the cost. Last season, the Bears ranked just 28th in expected PPR points per game to their wide receiver room. That's life in one of the league's most run-heavy offenses, which we are expecting the Colts to be in 2023 as well, with rookie QB Anthony Richardson under center. So yes, Fields, Richardson, there are question marks there. So why is DJ Moore getting such a premium over Pittman when it's Pittman who has outscored Moore in each of the past 2 seasons in PPR points per game? The wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3 tier is full of wide receivers that have one red flag or another. I am not counting out DJ Moore as finally booming with potentially the best quarterback play of his career, but the reality that he is going a full round and a half ahead of Michael Pittman is too big of a price difference in my humble opinion. Michael Pittman is the discount version of DJ Moore, and he has the potential to boom in a serious way should Richardson impress as a rookie. And finally, archetype number 6, a talented tight end in an offense where we actually expect them to not only be the number 1 player at their position, but to lead the whole group in targets. The expensive version of this archetype is, of course, Mark Andrews in round 3, but guys, going all the way in round 7 and sometimes even in round 8 is New York Giants number 1 pass game option, Darren Waller. It makes sense to rank Andrews ahead of Waller. He's far younger. By all counts, he's been better over the past few years in an offense with a more established passer under center, and you only have to go back 2 years to find the last time that Andrews outscored Travis Kelce in fantasy football land. Still, since 2019, Andrews has only scored 0.4 more PPR points per game than Darren Waller, and both of them joined Travis Kelce as quite possibly the only 3 tight ends who we should realistically project to lead their entire offense in targets. I'm not here to slander Lamar Jackson as a passer, but we gotta give Daniel Jones some level of credit for outperforming the 2019 MVP in completion percentage over expected last season. Their marks in terms of EPA per dropback were also very close. Again, give me Lamar over Danny Dimes, but this isn't to suggest that Jones can't enable at least one fantasy-friendly pass game option. Both players enter new systems with new offensive coordinators who have quite the history of enabling some serious production at the position. In Baltimore, Todd Monken spent his last 2 seasons leading Brock Bowers to some truly startling heights at Georgia, while you only need to go back a few years to find the last time that Giants OC Mike Kafka was making serious things happen in Kansas City with a guy by the name of Travis Kelce. Early Fantasy Life projections have Waller leading the Giants in targets, and it's not particularly close. I cannot stop drafting Waller in round 7 thanks to the reality that he's one of very few tight ends with the opportunity to lead his team in targets, and he's currently available after the top 40 wide receivers and top 24 running backs are already off the board.